Welcome to the Truth Table. My guest tonight is Adrien, and we're going to be talking about the residential schools, the Indian Act, and the difference between Native, Indigenous, and Métis. Now,
Perfect.
I saw one of your videos, and I thought this is something that really needs to be spread because not a lot of people understand how it works and how the Métis uh, are basically diluted form of Native Indigenous Canadian. So I'll let you take over from there, and um, and hope we can enlighten some people.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to say first and foremost before I started speaking, I do not want to offend anybody down the line. I don't want to offend anybody in the aspect of race because I know when we talk about race, first and foremost, we're talking about the identity of politics, not race. We're trying to talk about definitions first and foremost. We want to make certain that definitions are the thing that we must talk about, especially when we're talking about natural law, not so much about identity politics as to who's what and down the line, because, I'm not there to entertain that aspect or that thought that people, because they're Métis, that they're lesser, they're not. It's not about that. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the history of Canada and what we look at, and especially the Commonwealth and how they have taken over land prior for them, for the last 500 to 1,000 years. So I just wanted to make certain that that is hopefully understood by many people. So the definition of Métis, and I wanted to make certain that a lot of people think that it's half breed. The word Métis is half breed, and they say it's a French word, but it's really not. It derived from the Cree, which means a block of wood, and people have to understand that our language is very poetic. It's not so much as to look at the definitions when it comes down to Greek terminologies and all these other terminologies that actually makes up English, and all these things, all these definitions. How we look at it is it's more of what we see it as. When we say a block of wood, it means that they come from the land. They come from Canada. They come from the land and everything like that. But their roots have been cut off, if that makes sense. So their roots have been cut off, which means that the spirit of the land. I mean, when you're Métis, what our elders usually say, you have to pick between Muniao and Nihiao. So Muniao means white man, but it really means people not like us. Muniao, the Muniao. And Nihiao means people like us. So they have to try to pick whether they're like us or not. And that's the dividing factor between the Métis. They're a block of wood. They're from the land, and in order for them to get their roots, they have to go back to their culture. They have to go back to their mother nature. They have to belong to the land, because we don't believe that we actually own the land. What we actually believe is that we are from the land and we can't own life. We're protectors of land. That's what my grandfather used to say. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's all based on community. Do you
yep.
choose this community or that community? And there's no racism involved. I understand that. We don't.
Yep.
We see all the world as our family, not as, uh, you know, we would give our shirt for anyone who's cold,
Yep.
kind of thing. So it's a whole different way of looking at things that most Canadians don't really understand.
Well, I've always told them, and I've always I used to sit there and speak with a lot of people, whether it's in Saskatchewan or in Alberta here. I used to always ask them, because they used to always, come with ignorance towards me, and they used to always say, "Well, these Native Americans think that they own this land, and they're going to kick us off." And this is the kind of discussions they always have. And I've always said, well, before we get to these kind of discussions, I want to ask you, what is your native language? I've always asked them, what is your native language? And they said, native. I'm not native. No, you're native. I always remember you're native. And he says, what do you mean? You're native to a jurisdiction of land of where you came from, Europe. Because I guarantee you, if you go back 1,000 years, you didn't speak English. You spoke
Yep.
some kind of tribe, some kind of dramatic tribe. You
Hmm.
actually had a bow and arrow at one time. You guys actually had a sweat lodge at one time. You guys used to have different customs and beliefs and creator and God or whatever it was, but you guys had something other than what you're speaking right now. And it made him think, what? I says, yeah, we're not the only ones that had tribes, you know?
Yeah.
So when you think about that, what has happened to you guys? Is that a form of colonization? Because before, you guys used to be Nihiao. You guys used to be Nihiao to that land. You guys had spirit to that land. You guys understood that land. You guys understood the animals. And
Hmm.
they really thought about it. I said, wow. Yeah. And then how did that all change? How did everything change? Was it, what do they call Christianity and all this other stuff that came down? Was it the Roman conflict, the Roman conflict? Because I know Rome went down, a long time ago with the Golden Eagle, and they started taking over Germania a long time ago. So,
Hmm.
they started taking over these tribes, and they started putting the gray cloud on you guys as well too. So what happened at that time to the point where you guys are now in countries and you guys are now into these set beliefs and you guys forgot your culture? So
Yeah.
when you open up their minds, you start thinking, wow, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, we're not the only ones that went through the Indian Act. You guys went through the Indian Act too, but it was the White Man Act,
Yeah.
you know?
Ex- Yep. Yeah. I have the Indian Act up here, and it's the wording is incredible when it comes to. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Share screen. Indian Act. Here we go. I don't know if you can see that.
I can see some of it, yep.
Possession of lands, reserves, and here it says right here, subject to the act. Wait a minute, let me see if I can. Basically saying nobody owns any land unless the council says it's okay, kind of thing. The registrar shall, on inquiry from any person who believes that he or any other person he represents is entitled to have his name included in the Indian registry or band list maintained in the department, indicate to the person making the inquiry whether or not that name is included therein. Now, what didn't really want to go to that. I wanted to go to tells you about protests, how you can protest, even on roads. If you want a road, I mean, it has to all be approved. I mean, you can't do anything without approval on this thing. It's unbelievable.
It's we are the only ones in Canada that actually have a set act like this because, and here's the funny thing that I've always said before we get to that thought, you know, I find it so funny that a lot of people in Parliament, especially at the House of Commons, they never talk about Native law, especially the Indian Act and how it affects Canada, especially treaties. They
Hmm.
will never bring these kind of laws down to the House of Commons because when they start doing that, then it starts opening the minds of people to realize that all of Canada is on land, Native American land that we never given up our rights to. It's ceded and unceded land. But
Yeah.
even if it's ceded land, does not mean that the queen or the crown owns it. It comes to the aspect of a joint venture on the land as unity and peace.
Yep.
And unceded territory, actually, the real people that have the jurisdiction and the control over unceded territory are the hereditary chiefs and councils. So that's what. Just hold on. Sorry about that. I don't know if
That's
you can
okay.
still hear me.
Yep.
Can you still hear me there?
Yep.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can't hear me now?
I'm gonna have to get back on here because I just somebody tried the phone and it just muted everything for me, so I'll come right back,
Okay.
okay?
All right.
Just hold on. I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
Let's see here. There we go. Adrien Thomas, guest here on the Truth Table. And we're talking about the the Indian Act. Here we go.
Hey, sorry
Well,
about that.
that's
So,
okay.
so the unceded territories, unceded territories belong to the hereditary chief and councils or the clan mother systems
Yep.
within that area as per ownership.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. It's not that we own the land entirely, but we have also joint venture as to what goes on here. See, what people don't understand is we never gave up our entity or our control. We have always believed that we are here to protect land, and we're here because we are children of the land, and hopefully that makes sense to people. But
100%.
what I wanted to say about the Indian Act now is that the Indian Act is a forced documentation that is there for control. It is there. It is the only thing that actually bring in the residential schools. It wasn't the Canadian government. It was the crown, and it was instilled by the crown to the Canadian government, which bring in the residential schools, which has put us in reservation systems, which has forced us to adopt a European way of what do you call control over our chief and council systems. Let's say, for instance, like chiefs. The word chief itself is not our word at all. It's actually a European word. We had grand elders, we had clan mothers, we had all these leaders back in the day. We had war chiefs, if that's the word for English. But at the same time, too, we have never had the word chief prior to. They're the ones that made it up, and then they gave it to us because we had a grand elder. It used to be a grand elder or clan's mother system before. If that makes sense.
Yep.
So that's where we got our residential schools. That's where we got our indoctrination to day school systems, and that is the reason why our chief and councils. Not only that, our elders are broken, and the Indian Act also dictates farming, how much we're supposed to get for yield. It also dictates how much business we're supposed to have in our reservation as an enterprise. We're not allowed to have what do you call factories, anything super viable. So if there's small little stores, we can have little stores, and that's totally good. They're not going to hurt us on that. But if we had Ford, Bombardier, Chev, Dodge build factories on our reservations, it is actually deemed illegal for us to have that. So it's crazy.
Yep.
So hopefully that makes sense.
I would hope that we would get some kind of constitution that is fair for everyone and doesn't exclude or create these divisions between us. A Canadian's a Canadian is a Canadian, and we also have to embrace the history and the culture. We have to protect it within that constitution. So I'm sure a lot of things have been stolen, like all over the world, and Aztecs and everything. The Vatican just cleaned them out of all their artifacts and documents and tablets and scrolls. They just cleaned it all out so it would be erased, basically. And I'm sure they did that to Canada as well. We just don't
Yes.
talk about it.
Well, when they talked about what do you call New York and the museum there, I forgot what it's called, that museum there, but they have estimated within Canada, let's say Turtle Island, there was
Hmm.
over 2,400 dwellings across Canada and the United States. 2,400. And when you go down to Idaho and all the way down to New Mexico, from Idaho, they found these things, the Newark earthworks, I think they're called earthworks. And they found a lot of geographical, like pyramids, you name it, all the way down the line. And what did they do? Like this was like exactly what they did in world, what do they call in Iraq? They started destroying temples, and that's history. You see, what they said was this: they only wanted to study the Native American in every single governmental building. Anything that they had that was written, they would destroy because they do not want our history to be prevalent. They needed us to be savage Indians, and
Yeah.
that's the only way they can take away civilization. If we had any kind of civilization, then it would belong to us. This country would belong to us. But because we are new to them, the first thing that they wanted to do was make certain that Europe and everybody, oh, They don't have nothing. Let's take over. And that's what it was. I mean, even though we were clearly living here, we clearly had dwellings, we clearly had the Aztecs, you name it, all the way down the line. They didn't care. They said they don't exist. We're taking over.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, and they kept a lot of the historical, valuable historical information that most wise men in cultures try to preserve some way or another, if they can hide it, or sometimes they're in caves, and because there's always that idea of a threat of it being stolen from us. It's like they always knew it would happen, so they carved it into stone, so it couldn't be changed and altered.
So true. We have a lot of oral history from a lot of tribes, and coming from the Cree tribe, we always had this oral history of the Great Flood, just like in the Bible, just like as all these tribes around the world. We had the Great Flood. They talked about Nanabush and what they call the otter and everything. They used to talk about all these folklore, these myths that we had, and ironically speaking, they even talked about, like I said, the seven star systems in the sky. That was our calendar. And like I said, Kelly probably even talked about it. The Native American swastika, that was considered the Thunderbird symbol for us, because that was the truth in the sky. That was the four directions. That was the seven grandfather teachings, and there's seven stars. And the more we go into this, this ideology of training and thought, the more we start realizing that we're not the only ones that actually look to the stars. There's many people, the Egyptians, you name it, have the same teachings.
Many cultures
So
use that symbol, and it's basically about peace. And it was hijacked by all those who supported
Paul, I don't know what's wrong with my phone here. I'm gonna have to leave again and come back. Somebody's trying to phone me, and I'm just gonna, it just deletes me. I can't. It's same thing. I'll be right back.
Adrien Thomas here with us at the Truth Table. Next week we're going to be talking about something else. I'm not sure exactly what, but I believe it's going to be about Semitism and different religious ideologies that we want to touch on, having different perspectives. We want someone who is Jewish. We want someone who is Muslim. We want someone who is Christian. We want someone who is Buddhist, and formulate and collaborate our information and try to make sense of all of them together, so we have a nice big clear picture of creation. Adrien is back. Here he is.
Sorry about that, Paul.
It wasn't me calling you, I swear.
Yeah. So where are we at right now, Paul?
Well, we were talking about the artifacts being stolen, and as part of stealing culture, which they've been doing all along, which I think is a horrendous thing to do to mankind. I think that's our history makes us fascinating. That's why I'm fascinated with other cultures around the world, is because of the history there, the culture, and how it all happened. I'm curious. I'm like a cat, I want to know everything.
I hear you.
So for that to be stolen from someone is from a dark place. It's not normal. It's not natural. It's natural to be curious, not natural to want to dismantle, destroy, and erase.
Totally, I agree. I totally agree. You see, my grandfather was he was a politician. He met James St. Clair back in the late 70s, early 80s. They did this 1984 Accord here in Edmonton. They talked about a lot of things in regards to what we're talking about, especially the Métis and you name it, the Indian Act and everything like that. But one of the things he used to always tell me is that they don't want us to know our history. They don't want us to know who we truly are. This is why the residential school was made. It was there, and they can say sorry all they want. The Canadian government can say sorry right now. Reconciliation can be saying sorry, but the truth is, They are not sorry. They are
No,
not
and
sorry one bit.
no, they're not. And they completed their mission. They got
Yeah.
rid of our languages, made everyone speak English, which is fine. Here we speak English now. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay.
They don't. They are not. They're not sorry at all. As a matter of fact, they're going to try to give everybody reconciliation by 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 money. But here's the thing that people don't get is that, you know, we are a 60-40 split between the treaty. There's a 60-40 split in the aspect of understanding. And if they don't understand that, then you have to understand how birth certificates work, why it goes down to the aspect of Hudson Bay Company, how they finance their own country in Canada.
Yeah,
It's all because of loans, and it's how the monetized system works, how it works down the line. It's the engine. And they needed us to make certain that we lost our identity.
yeah,
When we
that's it.
lose our identity to natural law, especially to where we came from, it will work in their system of governance, because if you don't know your rights, then you don't have any rights. And that's how they look at it. And if you're signed into a birth certificate, then guess what? You're a corporate number within Canada.
Yeah,
So you subscribe to the man-made law, not common law, as like a lot of people think. But the
mhm,
truth is, your natural law, anyways, you got God-given rights, and they want people to be manipulated into the system of governance to do so. That makes sense.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a lawyer by no means, and I don't expect anybody to, take my advice for it. But I've always encouraged people to do their education. But even then, today they're changing definitions. They're changing definitions of Native American Indian to First Nations to Indigenous.
Hmm.
And we got to be very careful in the definitions, because at one time we were Native American Indians, and now they want us to be First Nations. But remember that treaty says Native American Indian.
Yeah, it
We
does.
don't have
Yeah.
First Nations on that treaty.
Yep.
And the last thing that they're trying to do is make us all inclusive to Indigenous, which means that Inuit, they're not Native American at all. They're not our race. They actually have a different race. So they're from Siberia, they're from Greenland, they're from the Arctic Circle, Russia. They're all from Denmark. All these things like that. They are not. They didn't originate from Canada. They migrated to Canada. So they are of a different race, and we have to make certain that we do not call them. We're not inclusive with them. We're not inclusive with the Métis neither. Métis have their own distinct culture, so we have to make certain we keep these all separate. And why I say these things have to be separate is the same thing that my grandfather said. Um, in Ireland, in Scotland, he said, those guys never wanted to listen to the king a long time ago, so the king made it a law. He said, if they don't want to listen, we will breed it out of them. I forgot what it's called. I forgot what the terminology is, but what they did was that when a man had his wife, it was up to the duke to sleep with her first before the husband on their wedding night. So that was a law, and the only reason why they did that is because if we cannot make them listen to us, we will breed it out of them. Our blood will be in their people, and they will become us. You see?
Hmm.
So why I say these things are very important, because the Métis never had rights until 1990. And what I mean by that is, 1990 is that what happened was they sought out for foraging rights and hunting rights, and that's the only time they ever
Yes.
had rights.
Yes. And PST exemption, I think, is all.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
So
indigenous
that's
is
pardon
not a
me.
noun. Indigenous is not a noun. It's like an adjective. It's a description, like produced, growing, living, or occurring natively or naturally in a particular region. Like, it's a
Yeah.
description. It's not uh, Canadian. It's not direct. Well, Canadian is a description too, so that's a bad
Okay.
example.
Well, it's United Nations is what they're trying to do. They're trying to use the United Nations bullshit, right? And that's the thing that this is how they lost Australia. The people of the Voice lost all their land up there, up in Australia, because these guys. This is not the first time they've been doing it. They did it in Germany. They did it in France and England. This is how they did it. So this is how they taken away their native, their native belief in their land. So what I'm trying to say is that we got to be careful of definitions, and the reason why is because they want to include us all into one category as Indigenous. And this is people were asking me a long time ago, up in 2015, and when I was talking about this 2008 to 2012, there's going to be the greatest what do you call land grab in history, and has a lot to do with Canada's land grab. And people are saying, what are you talking about? Native Americans are going to lose their land, and they're going to be losing it by the Métis. Not because Métis are going to take it, it's because they will use the identity of Métis, and they're going to use the definitions as to how. And I'm not trying to go against the Métis. Like I said, I am not going against them, but this is how they're going to do it. You see, we are governed by the Indian Act and reservations.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do. We're governed by the Indian Act. We cannot make viable businesses. They'll stop if we're making too much money. They did that with the BIA Act in the United States as well. 2 or 3 times in history that they surpassed the white farmer. And what happened was there's always been policies to make certain that they will never rise. And the last policy that was created was in 1950 something, where after that, the Native Americans in the United States have never recovered. The richest reserve and the poorest reserve suffer from the same atrocities, drugs, alcohol, and all these things, sexual abuse and everything. It's all because of oppression in the reserve that will not allow them to go through. So these are the things that are set upon the Indian Act, just like, the chief and council system, the reservation systems, and all these things, and the loss of your heritage and your culture and your language. So the Indian Act keeps it down. Now, what they're trying to do with Bill C-53 is try to make certain. See, we're treaty, but Inuit are not treaty at all. They are not treaty, and Métis are not treaty. They never signed a treaty because they have to realize that those territories are underneath the power of Native American entities, which means that we're there to protect the land. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
So here's the thing. If they give Inuit treaty status, in order for them to have treaty status, they have to have land acquisition acts. And people have to realize that more than 50% of Canada is in unceded territory. More than half of Canada is in unceded territory. That's one that people have to understand. Secondly, if Inuit become treaty, okay, then those people that actually had half breeds, the white man half breed with the Inuit, technically speaking, in the white man language, they're considered Métis, which is not true because they're not of the Native American race. But they're going to consider them Métis.
Yeah, I'm Métis. Micmac is my area. Basically, it's in New Brunswick, and I think they're on the Quebec side, and we're on the Canadian New Brunswick side. But there was a little bridge that went over, and I guess a couple of my relatives went over that bridge.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But why I bring these ideas up is because Inuit will become treaty, and they're going to have a land acquisition act right away. And what just happened about last week, the largest land transfer to Inuit, right? See, they never owned that land. They were here. They migrated to the land. But we're not trying to fight that. We're not trying to get into definitions. We're just saying these are the things that we know. So now they don't have an Indian Act on them. They do not have an Indian Act on them, even though they live like Native Americans. They do have certain acts that were against them. They went to residential schools too. We understand that, and there's a lot of things, right? But they have a certain set of rules opposed to us. Now, here's the kicker. When they give Métis treaty status, Métis will not have an Indian Act put upon them whatsoever. Not only that, they will take 1/3 of all treaty land across Canada. 1/3. Because they are considered, a part of that.
Wow.
And not only that, they will take 1/3 of Inuit land. 1/3. Because they're half, that's what they're probably owed to. Now, here's the last thing. If there's 1,100 nations and you're from Nova Scotia or wherever, Newfoundland, you'll have to find your nation's land. So they're going to go down to BC and take that land over there too. Because you have to search for your own reservation or your land, right? But imagine all that land that they just taken. All that unceded land and all that land that they've taken, the native land, the Inuit land, unrestricted with no Indian Act.
So they can make as much money.
So they're basically a white man that has native land without no restriction.
Reminds me of somewhere else in the world right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're certainly doing that, spreading that land grab everywhere.
The land grab is going everywhere. You're right.
I don't think Canadians really understand what's going on or the repercussions of what's life is going to be like when this happens. Because I think it's going to be different. Do you think these new lands will have restrictions as the treaty, like not to be able to build roads without permission, or will they just be under Canadian law like everyone else?
They're underneath United Nations, actually. This is the United Nations agenda. And what they're actually doing is they're sending billions of dollars from Geneva down to people of the salmon, po' boys and everybody, Asman Nation. They're selling out a lot of the hereditary chiefs. When I went down to this, what do you call, where this River Creek Casino, seeing these hereditary chiefs, these hereditary chiefs are selling their signatures for $6 million a piece. So when you really think about it, it's United Nations, and this is all United Nations. Remember what they said at 2025, by 2025, 30% of Canada will be underneath United Nations. They meant it. They're going to use the Métis. And what they're going to also do is by 2030, they said 80% of Canada will be underneath United Nations. So if you put all that land together and you put it underneath the Métis, the fake Métis, not the real Métis, but the fake Métis that they're putting out there, if you really seen that, you would realize that more than 80% of land across Canada will be underneath the power of one entity, and that's the Métis Nation. And guess where they're getting that money from? Geneva. So people want to know how Canada is going to lose to United Nations and lose all their power, just like what happened to Australia and all these people around the world. And they say one world government and everything. You're going to own nothing. You'll be happy. Yeah. Well, Canada will not get rid of itself that way. It will have to be by the Indigenous people, not Native American, but the Indigenous people, to relinquish that power. And more than 80% will be underneath the liberal agenda of Métis. It's politics. I'm not picking on the Métis. I'm talking about the fake Métis that there. You already heard how many times that people are selling fake Métis cards.
Yeah.
Bryce Launder. And then you got Candace Hill. And then you got J.D. Anderson, where I got documentations of him. He's giving these people 15-minute districts. He's giving free internet to northern communities. And you ask why.
Yeah.
It's a lot deeper than people think.
Well, a lot of people can be bought off, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we know our politicians can be compromised. And I'm sure that's true. Because a lot of what they're doing, even locally, doesn't make any sense what they're doing in the schools, and it's bad enough what they did in the residential schools, but now every school, it's just like a poison to the mind, poisoning the minds of children, creating this false racism that doesn't exist within. I don't know anyone that's racist. I mean, I know there are racist people, but that's fine. If someone Asian came over and punched me in the face, I wouldn't hate all Asians. I wouldn't hate any Asians, but I wouldn't like that particular Asian. And that's not racism. That's the judging someone by the content of the character, and that's what we do in Canada.
That's true.
Individually, we don't judge the skin color at all, and
You're right.
and it's really hard for me to sit quietly while the government is trying to tell everyone that we're racist when it's not true. And there's no reason for you or I to sit back and say nothing about it, because it's not true and everyone needs to know about it. And we're going to repeat it until, until people see the truth, what the Indian Act is really about, and finding remedies to free all people. Oh, we're focused on Canada because this is where we live. So we have to free this country before we can think of any other country. We can care and wish the best for all the other countries, but this is our country. This is our land. We have to protect it, protect our waters, our streams, our lakes, our animals. We didn't even have prisons, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Before the invasion, we didn't have prisons. We didn't have police officers. We had a system that worked. We had rules, just like everyone else. And we taught our boys to become men. We taught our girls to become women, and cherish each other in marriage.
You're right. What people don't understand is too our governance system. United States governance system is actually adopted by the East Coast Native Americans up there. George Washington and everybody, they adopted this. They made the United States' governmental system. They adopted it, and yeah, we never lived this way before. We never believed in antidepressants and all these drugs. And I don't know, when people always say, this is what always gets me, is that you shouldn't be as a doctor because you shouldn't be giving medical advice to anybody, because what will happen is you're going to hurt them and everything. They need these drugs. And I've always said, no, 100 years ago, we never needed them. Why do we need them now? Well, depression is real. All these mental ill issues are real. No. What makes you think that a king at one time never had depression? A king never had these thoughts and everything like that. But what he did was he had to persevere. He had to push no matter what in order for him to be a leader. And now today they're drugging our people, our mothers, our fathers, our children, our elders to believe that there's depression. The problem is we became such pussies that we can't even look at the real issue in the mirror and, oh, our life sucks. The real thing is, my grandfather used to say, is that depression and all these things that come to your mind is actually healthy, because it challenges you to be a better man. What has happened to our men? We believe in all this fake, this facade that mental illness is really here. The truth is, we've been like this for thousands of years, and only for the last 100 years we had these medications, and all it really does is it dumbs down our brain, stops our spirituality from growing, and we become dormant. And this is the reason why they're able to take away this country, because most of this answer is right here.
Well, what I've noticed, I've looked at all the ingredients of all these different medications, and it's full of poison. I mean, it's all attacking the brain. It's also getting through the blood-brain barrier, just like the mRNA vaccine. I mean, that also goes everywhere. I mean, you can't stop it. It's like a self-replicating machine that just keeps growing. And but that's another topic for another day. But yeah, there was depression, but we we dealt with it. We found remedy. If we were cold and we added more wood around the house, or you know what I mean, we plugged holes and we did what we could to uh, fix the situation. And medication is basically a biblical thing. It's the bite of the snake, like the needle. The vaccines are the reasons we have all these problems, and then the medication and the antidepressants are there to counter, to solve the problem, but really they're just dampening down your emotions. Antidepressants just shut down your emotions. They're still there in your head, but you don't react. You're just like numb. So all these emotions are still there, but you don't express them anymore. And they build up and they build up and they build up. And this is why people commit suicide, or they do irrational things, because that emotion is being, natural emotion is to deal with things, is being suppressed. So it's just building and building and building, making a little time bomb within people.
True.
And so I'm against most medications that are dealing with symptoms, and I'm all for any new medicines that surgeries that save lives. I'm not against science or medical procedures, but this vaccine program and these mood fixers are all, um, to me, pure evil to keep us customers for life.
I hear you, and I wanted to make certain that I'm not here to give medical. What I'm, I mean, I'm not gonna say it. I'll just say it. You know what? I'll tell you right now. Like I know people are gonna be angry a lot of times and everything like that. But I got this, this sickness and everything, mental sickness, and I've always said, like, it's like a cold medicine, cold medication.
Mhm.
My ex-wife used to think that cold medications will kill the flu or the cold. I said, no, it doesn't. And she says, what do you mean? No, it only does. All it does is just make it manageable.
Yep.
What you're really
Numb.
doing is you're suppressing it for an extra 3 or 4 days
Yep.
extra,
Yep.
and she says, what? He says, yeah, it's not there to destroy it. Um,
Yep.
but what we can do is understand it. I get it. This is a world that you have to live your life no matter what. And people get mad at me saying I have no right to say these things about mental health. I shouldn't even be talking
Yep.
about this
Yep.
medication. But here's the thing that I've also said too. Then you have no right to talk about fentanyl on the streets. You have
Yep.
no right to talk about that because that's a true poison. And then you guys are still, if you guys are going to stick up for medications, then you're going to stick up for fentanyl. There's no if or buts.
Yeah, and
You
for
know,
YouTube and Facebook, let me just clarify that Adrian and I are not doctors, and we do not have law degrees, and we're not giving advice. And vaccines save lives. And there's shows that we can do on medications where we can look at the ingredients, and we can show peer reviewed status that prove what I'm saying. So I'm not just saying it because I feel that way. It's not about feeling. It's uh, it's actual research that anyone can do. It shows the medications, the ingredients of all vaccines, and uh, the childhood recommended vaccines, and it shows all the ingredients, and you can go one by one and find out what it is and what the long-term effects of it is, and all sorts of good things and pros and cons of each ingredient. And it all that's the beauty of the internet today, is that we can uh, get to the facts. We just have to follow our gut, because our gut's not going to lie to us.
so true. I think that I don't know. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna give medical advice because this is the world full of laws. This is
Yeah.
a world full of things that we have subscribed to. Although I
Hmm.
don't believe in any of that bullshit, I still have to play by the rule because of the
Yep.
fact that uh, they gave up their rights to these freaking idiot leaders, right? So that's just how it is. We got corralled to the point where we got to be careful what we say.
Yep.
Um, but like I said too, I'm not going to be careful as to my opinionated thoughts. So this is my
Mhm.
opinion. As I learned with my lawyer when he used to always tell me, you can give out your opinion, but don't direct it to other people.
Yeah,
I think
right.
that a lot of things are bullshit. I think a lot of things are, World War II. A lot of the understanding might not exactly be the truth, because nobody wants to tell you 100% of the truth. They'll only tell you exactly what they feel is the narrative, just like the Native American narrative here when they lied
Mhm.
about us. They lied about Iraq. They lied about what do they call Judea. They lied about a lot of things.
Um,
A lot of things.
yeah, yeah, and the whole point of this podcast is really about our own truth. I may be wrong, but I think I'm telling the truth, and I'm willing to be proven wrong. I'm willing to be humbled and corrected, and then I can share the truth forward. So that's what it's about. And the more people you get involved in this thing, um, the more minds you put together, the more information we can gather as a community. And that's what I'm hoping for with this. I think we're going to have to do this again because there's so much to cover with our history and our culture. Uh, but I saw one of your videos that you were talking about this, and I was fascinated, and I thought, I got to do this. I got to spread this out because not a lot of people they just don't get it. They don't understand um, that this vision of the what do you call them? Uh, uh, Different regions, indigenous regions. They call them. What do you call them again? I can't
The
think right now.
Indigenous, the First Nations, the Native American Indians, the Inuit.
No, like the First Nation areas. Their land that they're on. Like a
treaty,
lot of people.
the
Uh,
treaty
a lot of
territories,
a lot of people
territories.
don't understand the rules and regulations and that they're limited to their income. I mean, that's ridiculous. How can if the people in Canada understood that those kind of conditions, imagine what they would feel like if they were forced to only make so much money. And they got a taste of it a couple of years ago with the lockdowns.
Yep.
When they were forced to lock down, they got a little taste of what it's like to have unreasonable conditions.
My grandfather, he was not allowed to make that much as a farmer. I mean, he would go out there to go forage, and he would go hunt and get all the furs and like we used to go and make all the hides, beaver pelts, and go take them down to the trading post, and we would make a living out of it. But when it came down to wheat, you're on you only make so much, and then we have to get my grandfather's other white friends to take the rest in, and we'll make deals with them. Um, and people don't get that. I mean, they don't get that. As a white farmer, you can go over there and make millions of dollars. As a white
Mhm.
farmer or a Warehouser Canada, they gave an 840-page documentation or definition as to what they can do with all that land there, more land than Native Americans have in regards to reservation land across Canada in Saskatchewan for what they can do, because it's all about the bureaucracies of Canada and how they can make money. But when it came down to us, the reason why they don't want us to be up there is because they realize this: if we ever gave Native Americans that identity to actually make viable businesses and reservations, or anybody to do any businesses with Native Americans, what would the Indians do? Is what they were asking. What would the Indians do with that land? They would take that money and buy more land, and take
Yeah.
that money and buy more land, take that money and buy more land. And they said in 25 years, guess what will happen to Canada? It will belong to the Indians.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't want us to be viable.
But then our water would be clean again
Could be,
because
and
we wouldn't let these chemical companies go, pollute upstream like they do.
true.
That's what they're
But
doing in the reserves. They're polluting all the streams and the water. So
well, they
it's
want the water. That's what they were saying. I don't know if you did. Do you ever hear of something in Nestle back in 2008, 2009,
yes,
what they were talking about?
yes, insanity. They didn't think we had a right to it.
Yeah, this was after the what do you call the bubble of what do you call the housing market, right? When it burst. And What do you think that they have in those pipelines right now from NODAPL? Remember North Dakota Access Pipeline, Trans-Pacific, what do you think that they're going to be putting in those pipelines?
Clean water.
Exactly.
That would be smart. Yeah.
Well, those pipelines, when they were going through BC territory here, and they got these environmentalists to stop. Do you know who paid those environmentalists to stop the pipeline from going through BC? A guy by name of George Soros paid those environmentalists to go stop that pipeline from going through the reservations.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And so they couldn't go through the reservations, so they went 100 miles north and they went straight down towards BC. They were going to make this pipeline so that way Canada's oil can be in the international market, right, instead of the United States. So as soon as that happened, Justin Trudeau came into power. And guess what he turned that cove into in BC? A bear sanctuary. So that way we can never put the pipeline through BC.
Wow.
So you go figure, and then you start looking at why they needed to do that, because 2017, Justin Trudeau was having lunch with the Métis Nation in Ottawa. Go figure. 2015, because I know Perry Bellegarde used to make them jackets. 2015, the Prince's Trust. He might even have it on his website still. But the initiative was called the Great Reset, a COVID-19 initiative, 2015. So I'm not talking about, what do you call, conspiracy stuff, especially if it's on their website. But what they needed to do was make certain that the Emergency Act was instilled in order for them to pass laws, in order for United Nations to start selling land.
Mm-hmm.
And they needed to use the Métis Nation to do so. So when you really think about it, we cannot have a government this stupid. We cannot have liberals this stupid. I refuse to think that liberals and the people are that stupid to believe in this narrative of climate change, when it used to be global warming, ice age, and now climate change. I refuse to believe people are that stupid. There are forces out there that are truly here to take away Canada, and they are here to destroy not only that, the COVID-19, to kill as many people as they can. That's what I believe in my heart, because I don't think people are that stupid to give up their country unless they're bought and paid for.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
what I truly believe.
It makes perfect sense to me, because they're doing things that are not natural. It would be natural for us to have a pipeline of oil so we could distribute it and, turn it into gasoline and have refineries right in Canada. We can East Coast, West Coast, and we could drop that price of gas right down by doing that.
Exactly.
But I'm kind of a little bit Trumpish this way, where I think energy independence is important too for Canadians, for all our people here, so they can have cheap, clean food, water, gas, oil, whatever they need to survive. And that would be the normal thing for a government to do if they were actually, honest, good, wholesome people. That's what they would want to do, I think.
I think you're right. I think so. It's not about thinking. I think you really know that if you're for your country, you would have a sense of nationalism. You know how much resources you have here. The international market. I refuse to believe that this country should be falling in this much inflation. I refuse to believe that we only have an army that can only fight for one day. Theoretically speaking, we can only fight for one day, because what is that? He destroyed more than 50% of the army already, and at the end of the day, we only have less than 1 day's worth of ammunition, because he sent all that ammunition to Ukraine. I refuse to believe that we should be in this bad of a shape. and to actually start selling off our resources underneath the aspect of credit. Who gave them the authority on native land to sell native water and resources underneath the form of debt? I don't know,
Yeah.
because we never gave them. Mother Nature is natural law; it's not debt. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yep.
But you have to look at credit itself. It is a technology. Credit itself is a technology. It has no bearing but debt. And the
Hmm.
reason why it is there is so that way that over time, over 50 years, when they instilled that, they said in 50 years, most of the Western countries and most of the world will fall into one new world order because they cannot afford debt. Guess what? Since 1971, 50 years later, guess what? Canada is almost falling
Yeah.
because of debt.
Yeah. And it seems deliberate because even the States is doing it. You're
Oh,
just
it's
throwing
deliberate.
money out the window, just burning it up.
It's deliberate.
Yeah.
Just a while ago, there's $20 million that went to the Clinton Foundation. Just a while ago. You think that all those billions of dollars that left Canada actually went to Ukraine? When you think about it, really, it didn't. It
I
really
think,
didn't. From my
yeah.
point of view, I don't think they did. How can we give that much debt to the whole world and keep on paying more and more and more, unless we never had that money to begin with and he wants to cover his tracks, just like embezzlement of the chief and councils. That's how they do it in chief and council land.
Hmm.
But that's
Yeah.
just me. That's what I think. I don't trust nothing this government will ever do, especially coming from Native American land. Looking at the chief and council land and looking at the white man land, and when it comes to governance, all I see is corruption. So
Yep. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast, Adrien. I hope you come back again because I think we could do quite a few discussions uh, about this. And it's an important topic for me. And I think anyone who's joined us, I'm not sure if anyone's with us or not, but this will be recorded. And I hope you share and like and subscribe. And I hope to see you very soon. Thanks again, Adrien, for
thank
coming
you
on.
very much, dear Paul. Thank you very much for keeping me on this show. Have yourself a good night.
You too.